So my name is Andy Jones, and I'm an actor and a writer. I have been working in St. John's for 52 years. I generally work in comedy, and I work lots in collective comedy in my early years especially.
My name is Azal Dosanjh. I'm a writer, a director, a producer. I've been working in the St. John's Theatre community for about 6-7 years now. I've always been very fascinated with comedy in theatre, but also political comedy in theatre. I can start that.
Yeah.
Because I did not grow up in St. John's. I wasn't familiar with Codco. I wasn't familiar with your work. I wasn't familiar with work of other people who were involved with Codco. But when I was translating the works of Gursharan Singh, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, everybody kept saying to me, "Oh, you should watch Codco, or you should get in touch with those people." So I did some online research. I watched some stuff, and then in 2020, I had the opportunity to get some money from St. John Shorts to kind of start an early dramaturgy of the translations I had done of Gursharan Singh's work, and I was able to approach you. And perhaps it was the pandemic that made it happen, but you were available, you were really interested too, and that was the first time we met. I remember we met in your apartment.
That's right, that's right, yes. And I got to read your translations.
Yeah.
I kept trying to do them in Newfoundland accent, so I was thinking, oh yeah, I can see where this is coming from in that world too, right?
Yeah. And it really fit. The translations, the way you did them in as if they were set up in Newfoundland. They worked. They just worked.
It's interesting sometimes. Like I remember doing some of the Codco material with like a New York accent, and it kind of works anyway. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's anyone that we could go talk to exactly. But we were very influenced by British comedy, especially The Goon Show, which we all listened to on the radio when we were kids, and a review called Beyond the Fringe. And then eventually, I guess SCTV came along at some point, but by then we'd done our stage stuff. There wasn't quite the kind of people who had beaten the path for us yet. Collective means that everyone in the room is contributing to the final product. And some days you give more, and some days I give more. But at the end, the entire product is formed by the whole group. Sometimes there might be a director picked within that, but generally there's a kind of chaos, creative chaos, which results in careful writing sometimes.
I was just going to mention the word chaos. I was going to say I have worked with collectives, but I haven't worked with collectives as long as you have. But my experience has been, it's finding that through line between the chaos, between that creative chaos, when ideas are just floating around. How do we identify that one line of thought, and how does everybody contribute to that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a phenomenon actually.
Yeah.
When it happens, you go, my God, 6 of us just wrote a song together.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's a pretty good little song. And you hit another person, another line like that. Oh, that builds and builds, and then you start to do it, then you change it again, and then finally by the time you get to, and what we did in Codco Collective was we always were carefully scripted by the time we got to the stage, even though we didn't know our lines necessarily, but we were trying to say something very specific.
There was structure to it.
Yeah. Are you improvising when you get on stage, or is your group, or are you scripted?
So it's a mix of both. So it's essentially what you said. So even with the development of the show with Tamasha, we were working over the course of so many years, and so many people came into the room, contributed in their different ways. So a lot of the scenes that they had improvised out of nothing, so many of those lines have survived in the script today. And when I bring the script to rehearsal today, there are certain sections that I've marked in the script, like, oh, these parts of the script, you can do whatever you want. You can improvise it a little bit, as long as the timing is intact, as long as the intention is intact. So there is structure to it, but then there are opportunities for the actors to, feel it out, improvise.
So are you the writer, in the sense that Does it all go through you?
At the end, yes, I am
Yeah.
for this particular show, I am the writer.
So you're the one that, yeah, in a collective where you don't have a kind of director person, that's a bit chaotic.
Yes.
So we had one person who was on the book every day.
Mm-hmm.
So you say you're on book today,
Yeah.
and that person would be responsible to write down every idea that we had.
Yeah.
And you formally improvise?
Yes. Yes. You mean me or the
No, I
team?
mean like when you get the group together, you say, okay, I'm working on this scene. Here's an idea. You improvise, and you'll write it down. What people say.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah,
yes. So we did that a lot. Not doing that as much now that we have the script ready and
Yes.
we are in the final phase of putting it up. But when we were developing the show, that was happening a lot. I would just create up a scene. Okay, this is a scenario. Those two people are trapped in a prison. Something happens, and they cook something up, and then I record it. And then I go back in my dark room, listen to it over and over again, see which improvised scenes work from day before yesterday. Maybe that connects with something we did today, or maybe they can go together.
And literally an audio recording or video recording.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We didn't tend to do that a lot, but we did sometimes. But we did have a tape recorder on, an old cassette tape recorder,
Yeah.
because it's so important exactly how you said something,
Yes.
especially in comedy.
Yes. And you say it once and nobody picked up on it, and everybody laughed. But then if we try to remember it, it's gone. You won't remember it.
Absolutely. That happens so often. People say, what did I say?
What did it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there are so many lines in the show that like I said, were improvised. And the actors who are now performing those lines, I'm like, oh, you were the ones who made up those lines, and they have no clue. They're like, I do not remember saying this.
Yeah, so that helps.
Yeah.
Tape recorder helps for that, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I can only speak to my experiences of doing comedy. Not even in India. I can only speak of doing comedy in Punjab, India, the part of India where I grew up, and then Newfoundland and Labrador. That's like, I mean, I've done shows and work in other places, but those are the two prime places I've done comedy in. And I've always said this over and over to people that there is something, and I don't know, maybe I should sit down and write something about it, but there is something like about the people of Punjab and about the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, that they approach comedy and they approach certain aspects of comedy and life in a similar fashion. And I've always found that very, very fascinating. Even the good old joke of like, oh, Newfoundlanders like to drink a lot. That's the same case with Punjab, India. Like Punjabis drink a lot, and I was like, wow, why is that? Is there something going on here? And I can make up some things, but I would love to know what you think about how doing comedy in Newfoundland has been different from doing comedy in other parts of Canada.
I'll think about that, but I was just going to ask you, where does the Punjab fit in terms of, its success or failures or whatever within the whole idea of India itself? Like, does it fit in? Is it partially the Newfoundland of India or no?
It can be in some cases. India, the Punjab has always been. Punjab used to be the biggest state of India, one of the biggest states of India before the partition, before India was split into Pakistan and India, Pakistan and India, and then half of Punjab went to Pakistan. So Punjab used to be massive, and the people of Punjab, they have their own culture. The religion of Sikhism is also mostly present in Punjab, and so there is a special flavor in how Punjabis approach life, and I've found that tackling the ills of society through laughter and through community and getting together and telling jokes is something that I found to be more present in Punjabi culture. I may be speaking out of turn here because I like I said, I have not experienced a lot of other cultures of India, because India is massive. We have 22 official languages. So it's
A billion
it's-
people
it's-
voting in this election.
Exactly. It's the most diverse country. It is the most diverse country in the world. But another interesting thing is you mentioned elections and how India is going through their next elections at the moment, and Punjab as a state is the biggest opposition to BJP party at the moment. So that's also very interesting. No media outlet reported this, but the largest democratic protest that happened in the history just happened a couple of years ago in India, started through Punjab by farmers of Punjab. 250 million people taking part in the protest, standing against the laws that the BJP government were trying to put in place that would have privatized a lot of the agriculture in India, and agriculture is the primary occupation of the country, and a lot of it comes from Punjab. So Punjab was standing in direct opposition to the government, and they have been succeeding. Yeah.
Wow, yes. So it has like you say, it has its own flavor.
Yeah.
As Newfoundland does for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this happens with you too, but that people seem to appreciate Newfoundland humor in other parts of Canada, for sure. I noticed that. The same as Americans seem to appreciate Canadian humor a lot too. Being on the outside to some extent, although maybe that doesn't translate so much with you, but being on the outside of, being the special flavor within Canada, it does, it makes you say things that, it removes it from people, but in a way, it's their story too. But you're sort of seeing it as if it's them, but really it's you. So I know in Halifax, I love Halifax, and I find they're very, very supportive of Newfoundland humor and really appreciative of it. Sometimes better than Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's something. But I think that the sense of humor is different in Canada. I'm going to say the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. People in power.
People in power.
People in power, be it political power, be it economic power.
How about for you guys, religion? Is that something that people deal with, or is there a power in the church or the religious Sikhism that has been oppressive for people, or is it something else for you?
I wouldn't say definitely not. I mean, I shouldn't say definitely not, because there's always room for everything. But overall speaking, at the moment, it's the extremist Hinduism that's hurting the country the most, and that's one of the big, one of the big tools in their booklet to oppress people, to create a communal state through religion. So that's definitely present in my own personal writing, in the work that we have done, especially in Tamasha-O-Tamasha. I don't think we are exploring the religion as much, but it is gonna happen. It is gonna happen, and it's it maybe if it's not in this work, in a different work, but religion is definitely a big point of contention.
So like, we hear of, that people talking about the current government in India as being, as getting away from a secularism that Gandhi and Nehru seem to have brought into India.
Yep.
And so this is this must be one of the issues right now, is that if you have a kind of Hindu nationalism, then what do you do if you're not Hindu, I guess? And so therefore you are dealing with religion, I guess.
Yeah, the Muslim population is always in danger at the moment in India. The Prime Minister keeps saying, every now and then he'll say, Muslims are my brothers, and then you'll find another clip, or you'll find another place where he's like berating them, or he's like targeting them. And if you read into the history of Modi, the Prime Minister, and how he came into power, the rise of his power, it all started with hurting people of other religion, hurting Muslims. you may have remembered just like last year, like a couple of years ago, BBC put out a documentary, a 4-part documentary, exploring Modi's role in a big in a big political riot scandal back in 2000s, and Modi immediately banned the whole documentary from everywhere in India. So you can't really watch the documentary in India. You have to change your IP address or something and then watch it. And it really gets into the nitty gritty of how he used his influence over extremist Hindus to suppress Muslims, and to hurt them and to disengage them from the conversations.
So politics and religion really are intertwined, even more than here.
I would say so.
Yeah. Whereas religion, to us, certainly in CODCO, we picked that out, particularly our generation, who are breaking away from, kind of tyranny that the church, the Catholic Church, and the other churches, and religion in general had, sometimes for a good reason. I mean, the Irish Catholic Church in Newfoundland also, led the Irish people up, to get their rights too, right, within the system, because, we were under the penal laws in the beginning, having come from Ireland and stuff. So it's very confused. So we tended to punch up as much as we could to the church. We always punched up to politicians, and we tried not to kick down. And I can remember having those discussions, like saying, "Are we kicking down here?"
Yeah, every now and then you will
making fun
think,
of somebody.
Yeah.
Is this person a public figure? Are they really? And we had those debates a lot, actually.
And even when punching up, it's like, even if you are punching up, there is a way to do it in bad taste. So even punching up, you have to approach it in a way that the people who are watching, they will watch that and go back home and think about what's actually happening, rather than just go away thinking, oh, that's a bad person, or they just made fun of that person, or they made fun of that situation. It's punching up, but punching up in a way that people think about why they're punching up.
Great. Good man there.
Oh, you would have so many stories.
There's just so many things over the years. I remember the Old Trout Theatre Company coming from Alberta and doing The Unlikely Birth of Ishtvan. When that guy gets born at the beginning, this sort of fat bearded actor comes shooting out of his mother's womb, I guess, or whatever, onto the stage. That was a pretty funny moment. What would you say is your really funny?
Oh, that's a hard one for me. Because I have not spent that as many years at the LSPU hall.
Of course.
Out of those years and out of those shows I've done or seen, not a lot of them have been comedies, which is it's because I want to see more of them, but it's hard to. It's been hard to see. I don't know if your experience is the same, but I don't see as many comedies as I feel like there should be happening at the hall. And when I say not just straight up comedies, I also mean political comedy. So just to toot my own horn, I will say we did an excerpt of Tamasha in the Shortwave Festival in 2021. And one of those scripts we both were working together on the year before, Relief, about the floods. It really landed with some people. Some people were a little confused as to what exactly has been but then other people were like, oh, we get it. And there was a hurricane coming just a day after, and people thought, oh, this was very, very timely. So that was a good experience for me to know how this piece is working in this space. What more do we need to add to this piece so people can connect to it a little bit more? but the comedy of the piece really, really landed with the people.
Yes, I remember that piece. Yeah, that was a good piece, for sure. It's hard to say. I mean, watching Ray Guy's plays the first time, of course I was in some of them, but watching the reaction to those plays was, they were so dark. There was something so Newfoundland. I remember going to Halifax, and we did the production of Young Triffy in Halifax, and the stage manager said, "This is not a comedy. Like, this is like, there's child molestation, there's animal interference, there's murder, there's abortion, there's, it was just a list of things." And man, it was the funniest play, and how he did it, I just don't know. That was a very funny show at the hall, I think. I don't know.
I'll also say, and again, not to appease you or anyone else here, given how different the subject matter is, I found "Don't Give Up on Me" so funny.
Yeah. Tried to put some humor in there. Yeah.
And
sure.
I really found that so helpful.
Yeah. I really tried to keep humor in that if I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's there's been a lot of good comedy. When we started out, 50 years ago, but there was no canon of theater that we could go to other than British and American.
Mm-hmm.
The classical canon, I guess you call it. But so we invented it ourselves.
Yeah.
So I remember being on Canada Council juries, and them saying, in Canada, they were trying to make sure that the companies were doing, I think it was like 4% Canadian. I was thinking, geez, 100% Canadian in what we're doing, everything we did. But of course,
4%.
I can't remember, it was 4% or 14. I forget. But I remember that thing of thinking,
That's not enough.
very low,
Yeah.
and then compared to what we were doing. So and we tended to go with humor a lot. And of course, we were in the era of sketch comedy. Sketch comedy was really big. It was getting bigger and bigger, and it eventually became with Monty Python by the time we were in university.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was before Codco started, and then Saturday Night Live and SCTV was a big influence on us.
That's hardest may not. I don't know if hardest would be the word. It is hard. Comedy is hard. It's a tricky. Comedy is the most tricky thing to do, I'd say.
And you also, I guess, the impact on you is that if they don't like it, if they don't like it because they don't laugh.
Yeah.
And the laughter is this it's almost, it doesn't exist without the laughter. It's like, and that's why I find it hard sometimes when I'm doing something, straight play, because I'm thinking, where are the laughs? My body's crying out for that drug.
Yeah.
I'm just not getting, right?
It's a live aspect of it too, like live comedy especially. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And also, and sometimes you don't know why things get a laugh. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah.
Why is that?
You would think in a rehearsal room people will laugh at the fourth line, but then when you go up on stage, people laugh like 2 lines before or 2 lines later.
Yeah.
Why did that happen?
And why? And it happens a lot. I've never known why that line gets a laugh. Yeah.
I will ask you. You saw the show last year.
Yeah.
You saw Tamasha last year. How would you say it was different from other things that have been happening in the city, and how can it appeal to the general population? Because that was my biggest thing when I was developing the show. I've been developing it for like 4, 5, almost 6 years now, and every person I went to help me develop, I kept saying that the core idea is I want to make a political satire piece that's universal, which is which is just even hard to comprehend because political satire is so specific to time and space. So how do you create a satire piece that can be that can be current, and that can be relevant to the place it's happening in, but then you do it anywhere else in the world and they will get it too?
Well, I think there is that kind of everyman quality that your piece has. You know, that the characters in it are in situations which everybody finds themselves in the world. But it's local enough that it's real, in the sense that, you know, if you're trying to be too universal, then you're from nowhere.
Yeah.
You need to see something so I think you've succeeded in doing that, and being from a place, but still not too specific at all.
Yeah.
And you also have that ability to be kind of, you know, there's kind of a Newfoundland flavor to it. Lots of the characters in your piece have, which you know, which is fun too. So I think it works. It works in that way too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I was just wondering how you found that. You know, how you found your reception here generally to this piece and to other stuff you've done.
I will stick to the reception that we got for Tamasha last year, and I was honestly, I mean, we all knew it was a collaborative project. We all knew we did something amazing, but it was very, very heartwarming to see people come up to you after the show and say things like, "Thank you, somebody had to say it," or like people messaging me later that may have been, you know, and young people who maybe don't see as much theater, them letting us know that this was the best thing they've, you know, seen. So it was really, really good to be able to pull people into a show and let them be a part of the show when we are hurting, or when we are hurting with audiences at the moment, when it's hard for especially people of, you know, my generation and even younger. It's been hard to get them out to see theater. Theater as a business has been hurting too. So finding ways to connect with those audiences that we are disconnected with at the moment, that was my biggest, you know, takeaway from the show, and I hope we can keep on building on that, because my hope is, and this is a philosophy that comes from Gursharan Singh, whose work makes up this show, that if you don't ask society a question, he always said, if you don't ask society a question, why are you doing theater? And then the second thing he said was, if your show is not entertaining, if you're not entertaining the people, if you're not inviting the people, if the theater or if the art is not for the people, then they're not going to listen to you. Then they won't be, then essentially you're just lecturing them instead of, you know, giving them something. So my biggest thing is, we are not selling a show, we are giving a show. We want people to just come and take the show. And that's why we have worked so hard to make 4 out of 6 shows, you know, essentially free, so that people can just come and take the show.
And that's the tradition of the kind of theater you are drawing onto, right?
Exactly.
Like public.
Exactly. Gursharan Singh used to write his shows keeping in mind the actors he's working with, would rehearse for a bit, then pack his team of like 4 or 5 people in a small Maruti car, and then drive around the villages, open up his car, bring out his costume, set up in a open ground, and then invite people from villages, and then have them watch them. And his thing was also getting the people who do not go to theaters to get those people out to see the shows. And that's what I want to do with Tamasha.